You can wish, you can want it, but at the end of the day, you gotta freaking work for it, everybody. And that's how you achieve anything. You have to work for it.
You know, there's this quote that I have on my desk that says that if failure is not an option, then neither is success. And again, all that doubt. And I think really what we need to do is sometimes we need to be too optimistic to doubt. You know, we have to be too determined to doubt.
When you're understanding your audience, and you can understand their emotions, and you can look at them, and you can actually read, you know, what's going through their brain, then that gives you the opportunity to create an emotional moment, right? And so when you create an emotional moment, that's when you can make a sale. You know, one of the things that I do before I show a property or I'm going to have a meeting is I go on somebody's LinkedIn, I go on their bio, I understand who my audience is, right?
Listen to your language, take note of how you talk, and erase, eradicate, eliminate. Stop using can't find the money, don't know where it's coming from, slips through my fingers, there's never enough, I haven't got enough to go around, I don't know how to get the money. Ban all those words and change them to something very simple. It's coming to me, the money is coming to me, it's coming to me now. Because your words shape your reality. Don't like your reality, change your language first.
If you worry, you don't have to worry. And if you don't worry, you have to worry.
I believe in being more interested than interesting. So the ego is the only thing that stands between you and what you want. And the worst thing you can do is try to please everybody and say yes to everybody. You're made by the people you say no to.
Feeling of low self-worth, you might find that you're spending to compensate. Nobody cares about that stuff. The people who matter don't care about that, and the people that care about that really don't matter. So often we spend money to impress people. We don't need to do that. What you can do to significantly earn more money is the most important. Spend time, a lot of time every day. Wake up and go, I'm worth it. In the shower, when you're in a meditative state with the water, say, I'm worth it, I deserve wealth, I'm attracting wealth. Secondly, ask yourself, what are you choosing? Because it is a choice. We choose every word that comes out of our mouth. What are you choosing to believe about money that's hurting you and limiting you? And then upgrade your beliefs. Imagine, I don't have to believe, I don't have to live a limiting life.
You can't fight with anything because you will attract more fighting. You'll attract more fighting for what you want, and your dream life will never come to you. I want to just tell you about manifestation because it's effortless. Okay, it's light and it's effortless. There's no effort involved. When you're fighting, when you're pushing, you don't believe that you have what you're wanting, it's not going to come. You're going to keep creating, not having it, because you're creating all the time. So you're either manifesting it or you're creating, not manifesting.
It doesn't take long. For example, you go see a comedian at 1 hour and 10 minutes, you love the guy. At 1 hour and 30, it's like,
Right.
I thought he was never going to finish. And all of it, you walk out with a whole different feeling. It's a small amount of too much cake, too much anything,
But do you think
and changes the whole feeling about.
This is because when we consciously desire a particular state of mind, we inadvertently create the opposite state of mind. So it's by wanting to be happy that we remind ourselves that we are not happy. It's wanting to be confident that we remind ourselves we are not confident. It's by wanting to be loved that we remind ourselves that we don't feel loved.
So again, it's not great work, big success, be happy. It's the reverse. You've got to train and prime your brain to think of happiness like a practice, like a habit, like something you invest in. Then being happy leads to doing great work, and the great work leads to having big success.
Well-intentioned parents who were like, we want you to be happy. But implicit in that is like, yeah, but happiness is a product of like, you do all these things and then you have this career and you do all this and the result, the implied result of all of this effort, all of this endeavor is the happiness. And it is backwards, right?
What our culture is trying to teach us is that you gotta buy more stuff. You gotta click more links, you gotta buy more things, and that path to happiness is, whatever is on a billboard that looks pretty, that, someone's smiling, the implicit thing is that that's gonna lead to happiness. It's not.
A few years ago, there was this concept called ego depletion. Run out of willpower, like someone would run out of battery charge on their phone, right? That it's a depletable resource. And this concept was promoted and kind of widely circulated in the popular press. Carol Dweck, who you might know from, she's probably been on your show, from her book Mindset, she decided to replicate these studies. She decided to run them again, these ego depletion studies. And she found that the only people who experienced ego depletion, the only people who actually did run out of willpower, were people who believed that willpower was a limited resource, right? When we believe that we are somehow deficient, that our brain is broken, that the world is conspiring against us to hijack our brains, when we believe these self-limiting thoughts, we act in accordance. Ego is, that our willpower is not limited unless we believe it is.
Paying bills. I don't think you can have financial peace unless you have inner peace, because there's so many people that you know that have lots of money who are overly stressed.
Right.
And more money doesn't always solve every problem. It solves lots of problems, but it doesn't always solve the problem of accepting and loving yourself.
It's spectacular. So you open the book with, if you've been paying any attention at all, you already know that work isn't working. We've seen quiet quitting, right? We've seen the Great Resignation, and you quote the statistic that in 2022, productivity dropped by the largest amount since has been recorded in over 70 years.
If your mind took instructions from you, would you create anxiety? No.
And ultimately, this sense of self that I think most people are experiencing moment to moment, and that is really the string upon which all of their states of psychological suffering are strung, is identification with thought, with conceptual thought.
If you have high expectations and high control, no problem. People rise to the occasion. But when you have a job with high expectations and low control, that's burnout. Why? Because it's a lack of agency. I'm expected to do all this, and I can't, right? I'm trying, but as much as I do, I don't have enough agency to meet these expectations.
And ultimately, this sense of self that I think most people are experiencing moment to moment, and that is really the string upon which all of their states of psychological suffering are strung, is identification with thought, with conceptual thought.
If you have high expectations and high control, no problem. People rise to the occasion. But when you have a job with high expectations and low control, that's burnout. Why? Because it's a lack of agency. I'm expected to do all this, and I can't, right? I'm trying, but as much as I do, I don't have enough agency to meet these expectations.
Heroes and cowards feel exactly the same fear. They just respond differently. It's still a memory. Nothing wrong with the past. It's a great human capacity to remember, to learn, to reflect on, to ruminate on the past, but not to mistake it for reality. And the same with the future. We can plan our day, we can use our imagination about the future, but the future never comes. It's always our imagination. Even if we plan our day, we don't want to become too attached to the plans, because they have a way of changing, don't they? We intend one thing, something comes up. So by focusing on the present moment, the here and now, that's our moment of power, it's our moment of reality, our moment of sanity. We can always handle this moment. When we're concerned about a toxic meeting we're going to go into, we're not looking forward to it, it's not happening right now.
We spend a lot of time talking about the mental side of success, having the right mindset, thinking the right things, all of those things. And obviously that's a really important part of success. But with all of that in place, with all the right thinking, with all the right mindset, success is still about doing. You've got to take action.
If there is no change, then you're a cog in the system doing what you did yesterday. So how do we create value for others, not simply demand something for ourselves? This shift is critical, because any job where I can tell someone exactly what to do, I can find a computer cheaper than you to do it.
Yes.
So if you're just looking for a script and a manual, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
First, it would be about trusting your process. Again, not comparing to other people, but trusting the process of your life unfolding. The second would be that faith is the courage to live as if everything that happens is for our highest good and learning. Would be to remember your innate worth as a human being and treat yourself kindly, with compassion. as you would treat others.
It's funny, in Meditations, there's a passage where Marcus Aurelius says, I know you think you want to get away from it all, like in the country or the beach or whatever. And he's like, but actually whatever you need is inside of you right now. He says, like, you can retreat and go on vacation inside your own soul right now. And I think it's true, right? We think, okay, if I can just get away from all these external things, then I won't feel what I'm feeling. Sometimes we do like a substance or a thought pattern or whatever as the other version of escape. But what we really just have to deal with is whatever that feeling is. And if you can deal with that feeling and process it and work on it, that's actually a more sustainable and permanent solution to that thing. But we can, I think, to me, one of the things that addiction is like a sort of a proven pattern where whenever you get that feeling, you do that bad thing, that thing you're not supposed to do. And then the relief becomes associated with that feeling, even if it's also destroying your life at the same time.
100%. Sometimes when somebody tells you the truth, you've got to learn not to be offended and use that because it is the truth. But hang in there, build something. And I'm not trying to influence everyone, only the right ones. Who are the right ones? Those who come into your life that can help you and you can help them. As scared as I was, there was something inside of me that was greater than the fear that was outside of me.
And the second you stop, like as they say it works if you work it, right? Like if you do that work, then you'll stay sober. If you don't do that work, you won't. And it's really, really hard work. It's like the hardest work because it's on yourself and it's against habits or practices or assumptions you've had your whole life.
Hunger is the antidote to fear. When you're hungry to start a new business, fear will leave. Or that many times greatness will come in a ridiculous form. And if you're not willing to look ridiculous, you will never achieve your greatness.
Everyone is being made to feel like they're not good enough right now. In the world. You realize that you can do that for yourself. Through these small practices, that this everyday routine, that you don't need validation externally, that this all comes internally, and happiness isn't something to be gotten, it is the way.
Is that I think we think people that are sober or in great shape or really successful, we think that they're just sort of gutting it out with sheer superhuman strength all the time. Right? That they just always do the right thing, that they are never tempted, that it's never hard for them. And that's not only is that not true, but the real secret is just trying to avoid the scenarios or the environments where you are vulnerable to not being who you want to be. I just understand that I am not setting myself up for success in that environment. And ideally, you want to build your life and make your decisions when it's in your control around the times and places and tools that make you the person that you want to be. And that's a huge part of it. So it's I think sometimes people think it's about discipline in the moment, which it is, but it's also about the discipline way before that. A good example actually with sleep is people go I'm not a morning person, or I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. And that's actually not a matter of discipline. The discipline is you should have gone to bed earlier.
And this phenomenon has been heavily researched by social psychologists. And there's even a term for confidence being an action. See, there's this positive feedback loop that happens when you're willing to try something before you feel ready, when you're willing to step into that leadership role and put yourself out there and take risks and make mistakes and shove that self-doubt to the side. When you're willing to try, neuroscience research says that you create something called a confidence-competence loop. Every single time you try something new, you're either going to be really good at it or you're going to be terrible at it, right? But you always learn something. But you have to try.
Is that the reason that most people aren't successful, in my opinion, is that they sacrifice global benefit for local benefit. And that happens in all areas of life. You eat the piece of cake because you have an acute local benefit versus the global benefit of a six-pack that lasts for a very long time or better health, et cetera, right?
You mean the instant gratification as opposed to delayed gratification?
Yes, exactly. I just like saying local versus global because it It happens in an organization, for example. Sales guys don't want to put the notes in the thing because it's a pain in the butt to put the notes in the CRM. But finance needs the notes, customer service needs the notes, success needs the notes, like all of these other departments need those notes for all the other things that we're going to do. And so it's a local cost, but for a global benefit. And so I think if people were able to delay that immediate gratification, which is like, this is the nature of success.
It's when you start blowing off the little things, the lagging, it's when you start blowing off the little things leading up to it, that you're setting yourself up for an inevitable failure or lapse of discipline when it really counts.
Everybody will not like you, and that is okay, because you don't like everybody.
Right. The simple question I am asking is, what happens from within you? Should it happen your way or somebody else's way?
It happen your way.
Of course, because the world will never happen your way 100%. Because there are so many stakeholders in the world, little bit will happen my way, little bit your way, that is fine. But what happens within me must happen my way. If what happens within me does not happen my way, this is the worst form of slavery, isn't it?
Wow.
Right? And so like all change, all process, right, involves a certain amount of trust. Like someone says, hey, you want to be a writer, do these things, right? Someone says, hey, you want to be sober, do these things. Hey, you want to have a good marriage, do these things. And you can be like, yeah, sure, right? Or you can be like, okay, I will actually do those things, right? And when you do those things, when you trust that process, it usually works out. More often than not, it works out. No one can tell you how quickly it will work out or how easy it will be, but like the process is the sort of tried and true process for a reason. And it requires the person to have both the courage and the discipline to sort of go, okay, I trust you, I trust this, and also I'm going to listen to this, I'm going to stick with this. And if you can do that, then yeah, magical things are on the other side of it. But the problem is we have doubts, or we go, oh, I'll do it 20% of the way, or I'll do it sometimes, and then we don't get the thing, and then we go, see, it didn't work.
Enjoy the process. I think the biggest thing I've forgotten, and I think the biggest thing so many people can forget, we forget to enjoy the process. We forget to enjoy the journey.
Yes.
The fun isn't winning, but you can still find joy in the journey, win or lose. And at times, I don't enjoy the process because I'm so focused on moving.
When you live accidentally, anxiety is normal.
Yeah, it's every day. But when you're living on purpose and intentionally and mindfully, you should be able to shift out of that.
Sometimes we're in situations where we don't know what to do. Sometimes somebody else is controlling the situation. Sometimes you're controlling the situation. This is how life is. If you are constantly stepping into unfamiliar situations in your life, that means you are growing at a rapid pace. If you are constantly in comfortable situations, that means you're a stagnant life. So if you look for comfort, if you look for a comfort zone, because the moment your thoughts and emotions are going to torment you with external stimulation that happens, what will you choose? You will choose a comfort zone. This means you will limit your life. So the moment somebody can cause you pain or suffering, this means unknowingly you will make the very scope of your life very limited. Only when a person loses this fear of suffering, that no matter what happens, this is how I will be. If this assurance comes to you, then you walk full stride, because whatever happens in the life around you, it will not really make you suffer. Once you are free from suffering, only when you're free from suffering, when you're free from the fear of suffering, that is when you will explore your life in full depth and dimension.
But it's favoring yourself. Every time you are angry, you're punishing yourself for someone else's mistake.
Right. So you get double the pain. They hurt you and you keep hurting yourself.
Yeah. Sometimes we want everything in our way only. That doesn't work. In relationship, there is always a compromise. There's always, you have to give and take.
But I think the most important thing is to keep active and to keep the mind active. So to me, life is about living, not existing.
Grammys. Do you have like a tiny ego room somewhere?
I don't. I used to send them all to my parents, and I don't know where they are now. It's a distraction. If you start thinking about doing something to achieve that, then you're not focused on this, making this beautiful thing. It undermines the purity of the project.
You see, don't postpone being happy. That's what I tell.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be a continual postponement. You may start postponing to the next lifetime.
Right.
You see that? Mental health, we talk about it. But we are not thinking about remedies which are time tested, like breathing, meditation, yoga,
Stillness,
and all these
nature.
things. Nature walk. And we are only thinking about what type of medication we can stuff ourselves with, and steroids that you take, and then you bloat yourself even more. And I think the lifestyle changes we need to adopt to ourselves. Yeah, this is what I would tell everyone. Don't underestimate your power, your mental power, your spiritual power. Each one of you have an ocean of energy within. Tap into that.
Yes.
And you can make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
The main thing for you to understand here is that it's far more powerful to get connected to your desired future self and let your future self dictate who you are and what you do in the present, and then let your present continuously reshape the meaning of your past so that your past is always happening for you, not to you. It's your future self that you ultimately want to identify with, not your past self. But your past self does have an identity, and you love and respect and revere your past self, but you also recognize that you're not your past self. It isn't who you are, and as you clearly distinguish how you're different from your past self, but also as you continually recontextualize your past so that it's happening for you, not to you, and in any cases, apologize. Recognize that you're not the same person you were and that you would do things differently. This allows you not only to be psychologically flexible and emotionally healthy, but it also allows you to become anti-fragile, where everything in your past is happening for you, not to you. Everything in the past is making you better, not bitter, but also your past is an increasing asset. Your past is an asset that continues to make your present and your future bigger and bigger and better, rather than having your past be a liability that's ultimately making your present and your future worse. Rather than believing that your past is driving the present and your present is driving the future, you want to continuously operate from your imagined future self and let your future determine your present, who you are, what you do right here and now, be, do, have, and then ultimately let your present continuously reshape the narrative, the meaning of your past.
You have to do the process. The process is non-negotiable. So if you have to do something, I don't have highs about it or lows about it. I know it has to get done. And if I let my emotions get involved in it, all right, it's not going to get done to its best abilities, all right? When you fail, your feelings give you excuses. Your mind makes you more resilient.
You can then see that you're the observer of your thoughts and emotions. You are not those thoughts and emotions. So as you want your future to determine your present rather than the opposite. Most people, they're letting the present determine the future. There's a great quote from Jim Collins. He said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have 0.
So pain is a good thing physically, because that is your preservation, self-preservation mechanism. But suffering is something that you do in your mind. So pain that happens in your body, you take it in your mind and multiply it 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times, depending on how capable you are, and suffer it 1,000,000 times over. Right now, most human beings are like this. What happened 10 years ago, they can still suffer. What may happen day after tomorrow, they already suffer. They think they're suffering life. They're not suffering life. They are suffering the 2 most fantastic faculties that human beings alone have: a vivid sense of memory and a fantastic sense of imagination. Why is growth foundational to joy? Joy is foundational to growth, isn't it? Because the content of our life will not change our life. It is the context of our life which changes our life. Because your content you have changed and you see people are not happy. Content of our life is phenomenally enhanced compared to how our grandparents lived here, isn't it? Even in this country.
Yes, definitely.
I think everybody to some degree probably causes suffering for themselves for this reason.
See, in this cosmos of which we do not know the beginning or the end, in this solar system is a tiny speck. If that speck tomorrow disappears, nobody will notice it. No alien lives are going to keep account, oh, planet Earth and rest disappeared. It just vanishes, it doesn't leave anything, no disturbance. In this tiny speck of a solar system, planet Earth is a microspeck. In that microspeck, California is a super microspeck. In that you are a big man. This is the tragedy of humanity.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, in yoga we have a saying like this which says, if you are focused on the goal, that means your one eye is on the goal. That means you have only one eye to find your way, very inefficient. You will have desires and desires, more and more misery. You will not get there because your one eye is on the goal. I can generate a thought unconsciously, I can also make it consciously.
Yeah. So I believe I'm good at one thing, and I'm good at building fitness businesses because I'm passionate about fitness. I was a fat kid, fitness changed my life, and so I want to help more people in that area of life. And so every time I try and deviate out of my zone of genius, which is fitness business, if I tried to make a funnel, run a Facebook ad, I am operating outside of my zone of genius. And so I learned very quickly that there's only about 5% of the things that you do that move the needle. We end up doing a lot of things, like most entrepreneurs end up writing the payroll checks and doing their own taxes. Why? Well, because it's easy, it's drag and drop. Who cares? That's not your zone of genius. You can hire someone and outsource that. But I realized very quickly that I can outsource 95% of the things, the trivial stuff I can outsource so that I can focus on the valuable stuff, the 5%, which for me is delegate, motivate, sell. And the more I can delegate out, the more I can motivate my team and my business partners and my clients to buy and use and purchase again, the better I do.
It's the attachment of the infatuation or resentment to money. That's why Warren Buffett says, until you can manage your emotions, don't expect to manage your money.
Talk a lot about you need to learn, right? So whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna learn about it. But then people end up in the death loop of like, oh, I'm gonna learn for 9 years because I don't think I understand. And I'm like, no. If you learn something in the morning, you start using it in the afternoon. So like you have to go right away. Otherwise it's all gonna be, book knowledge is not gonna be practical. Right. It's gonna be theoretical, it's not gonna be applied.
That there is no such thing as failure. I have reframed it in my head as I will experience temporary defeat many times in my life, but I will never experience failure.
Won't you experience
failure? Is a choice.
So is failure when you actually stop trying?
It's when you stop trying. It's a choice to stay down, right? And it's okay to stay down and gather your wits and then get back up, hence making it temporary defeat. Shield, and you're either shielding or soothing, soothing with drugs, alcohol, infidelity, whatever, or shielding as in not letting people in. And so how's that showing up with your kids, with your friendships, business partnerships, your wife, your husband? And so I very quickly realized that, oh my God, talking about this allows me to have more aha moments. More aha moments lead me to taking off yet another layer of that blanket, and the light gets brighter and brighter, and the brighter the light gets, the more people wanna hear from me and talk to me and do business with me and stay around me. And I realized this is how we make impact. We all want to serve humanity. We all know that we're on this planet for a reason. We have a higher level of purpose. So I want to change lives. I want to inspire people. Cool. Start with fixing victim number one before you go fix everybody else. It's a very big part of my life. But I divide social media people into two camps, consumers and creators. And I believe that you're better off being a 90% creator, 10% consumer. And that's what I am. And I create content that the 1.0 version of me would want, because I've been able to take myself from 1.0 to 2.0. And if 10.0 is my goal, then when I get to 3.0, I'll create content for the 1.0 and 2.0 version of myself.
And when it comes to money, you just want to create a system that you understand and believe in, that over time, when it will grow into giving you more security, peace of mind, and ability to use your time differently to do more of what you'd like to do. But don't try to get to a place where you're not sacrificing to get there. right? Where you're doing it from a harmonious way and that you're enjoying life while still planning and preparing for a better future, a better tomorrow. Me, when you transition to that level of commitment where you are just 100%, and then like the quality of my life, this like the depth of my thinking, the complete transition and evolution of who I've become over the last 6 months was only possible by slowly getting more and more disciplined over years, and then being able to quantify both how disciplined I was in a percentage, and then how that percentage affect my actual quality of life and qualitative data. If I wasn't seeing that data and I wasn't getting the proof that I was actually, the more disciplined I would get, the happier I would become, and then getting more disciplined and happier over time, gave me, finally drove me to the point where I was, like just landed in a place of, why would you ever want to not feel like amazing every single day? And that's a difficult place to get to, because now it's like I can't even fathom if I'll ever eat sugar or a snack ever again. I can't even fathom if I'll ever have a drink ever again. I can't, it doesn't even make sense to me 6 months in.
You're able to generate money, the less you have to worry about money problems. Now, money is not going to solve anything but money problems, and that's something that's very important to understand. But as you learn to master the game of money, you really can get ahead. So please don't buy into this narrative that money is evil, that rich people have done something wrong to get that money. They just understand something that you may not yet understand. And so this is another habit that keeps people broke, is they're not learning about money. They're not taking this time to figure out the difference between an asset and a liability. People are spending all of their money. Death habit number 1, you're spending all of your money on liabilities and not assets. So the key is to understand what an asset is, to understand what a liability is, and to buy appropriately.
And I think that's the difference between living as a victim in your world, saying, I am this way because of this person or that thing or this experience. They made me think and feel this way. When you switch that around, you become a creator of your world, and you start saying, my thinking and my feeling is changing an outcome in my life, and now that's a whole different game, and we start believing more that we're creators of reality.
Out of the content game, it just means you have to be a little bit more creative and work around your strengths and weaknesses. If you have an amazing voice, do a podcast. If you're an amazing artist and you can draw and illustrate, just use whatever talents you have and make the most out of it, versus sitting there and saying, well, I can't do that other thing. What can you do? Focus on that.
Big. Starting is the hardest part. Folks that study procrastination talk about the fact that the only way to beat procrastination is to create what they call a starting ritual, which is a way to push yourself to get started. Because all the research shows that if we can push you to get started on something, you'll likely keep going.
Your body is your unconscious mind. In a sense, if you're sitting down and you start thinking about some future worst case scenario that you're conjuring up in your mind, and you begin to feel the emotion of that event, your body doesn't know the difference between the event that's taking place in your world, outer world, and what you're creating by emotion or thought alone. So most people then, they're constantly reaffirming their emotional states. So when it comes time to give up that emotion, they can say, I really want to do it. But really the body is stronger than the mind because it's been conditioned that way. So the servant now has become the master. The moment you start feeling abundant and worthy, you are generating wealth. The moment you're empowered and feel it, you're beginning to step towards your success. The moment you start feeling whole, your healing begins. And when you love yourself and you love all of life, you'll create an equal. And now you're causing an effect. So to change then is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your world. And the environment is that seductive. So then, why is meditation the tool? Well, let's sit down, let's close our eyes. Let's disconnect from your outer environment. So if you're seeing less things, there's less stimulation going to your brain. If you're playing soft music or you have earplugs in, less sensory information coming to your brain, so you're disconnecting from your environment. If you can sit your body down and tell it to stay like an animal, stay right here. I'm gonna feed you when we're done. You can get up and check your emails. You're gonna sit there and obey me. And you do that properly, and you're not eating anything or smelling anything or tasting anything, you're not up experiencing and feeling anything, you would have to agree with me that you're being defined by a thought. So when the body wants to go back to its emotional past, and you become aware that your attention is on that emotion, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy, you're siphoning your energy out of the present moment into the past, and you become aware of that. And you settle your body back down in the present moment, because it's saying, well, it's 11 o'clock, and usually check your emails and judge everybody. The body's looking for that predictable chemical state. Every time you become aware that you're doing that, and your body is craving those emotions, and you settle it back down into the present moment, you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind, and now your will is getting greater than the program. And if you keep doing this over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, just like training a stallion or a dog, it's just gonna say, I'm gonna sit. And the moment that happens, and the body's no longer the mind, when it finally surrenders, there's a liberation of energy. Just because you have a thought doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So if you think 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day, and we do, and 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before, and you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, your life's not going to change very much, because the same thought leads to the same choice leads to the same behavior creates the same experience, and the same experience produces the same emotion. And so then the act of becoming conscious of this process to begin to become more aware of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. It's called metacognition. And so then, why is that important? Because the more conscious you become of those unconscious states of mind and body, the less likely you're gonna go unconscious during the day. And that thought is not gonna slip by your awareness unchecked, because it means to know thyself. The word meditation means to become familiar with.
How the numbers can change in your financial life, but your money psychology does not automatically change as well. So being decisive is a skill that is learned. And beneath this indecisiveness is a fear of making the wrong decision, a fear of being seen as stupid, a fear of not picking the perfect decision, in other words, being a perfectionist. But what you realize is that perfectionism is really for losers. It is a mechanism that allows us to avoid making decisions, and making decisions is where real progress is gained. That's where we learn.
One of my expressions, again, I say it's a game of spiritual evolution, not circumstantial comfort. And most people are trying to perfect their circumstance. If only I could have, fill in the blank, right? Like the bigger home, the better job, the better body, the perfect relationship, then I'll be fine. But those are all byproducts of when I shift internally. You know, this whole world of manifestation that people talk about. Like, everyone's manifesting all the time. It's just based on your vibrational state, your perspective, how the world occurs to you. You're manifesting the reflection of that.
Usually when people think about building better habits, they optimize for the finish line, right? It's like, how much weight do I need to lose? How much money do I need to make? It's all focused on the result. But I think instead, if you optimize for the starting line, make it as easy as possible to start, scale it down. Organize your environment so that all that stuff is set up, and prime your environment to make the future action easier, right? Like if you chop up a bunch of vegetables and fruit on Sunday, it's now easier to have a healthy snack during the week. If you set your workout clothes out the night before, it's now easier to get into the workout the next day.
I was a fun-loving guy, but my intentions were more for me to look good, for me to win, for me to be successful, for me. I started to realize at 30 that success was selfish and greatness was really about service, right? Greatness was not about just me. It was about having an intention of a dream that I might have, but including others in the dream.
Things move at the speed of trust, as they say. And
the goal isn't to have the perfect daily routine tomorrow.
the goal is to still be winning your daily routine in 50 years' time?
First you make your beliefs, and then your beliefs make you. And if you believe in yourself, other people will believe in you too.
The quality of the design of the cars, because actually the customer doesn't really care how the car was produced. They don't care about the technology at all. What they want is the end product, and we have the best end product.
And so I think if people were able to delay that immediate gratification, which is like, this is the nature of success.
There's always a problem that needs to be solved. Every single entrepreneur that I have met that has been successful has said, there's a problem out there in the world, and I thought somebody was gonna solve it. Nobody's gonna solve it. I'm gonna solve it.
You know, the person who loves walking walks further than the person who loves the destination.
I'm sure you know, and I know a lot of people with more money than anyone else, the most money in the world, and they have some major gaps in their own sense of joy. And a lot of them, people will admit it in the last years of their life and go, what was I doing? Why did I pack the U-Haul behind the hearse?
It feels like things have to be much more tangible. What are you going to do about it? Rather than, I don't want someone personally, and maybe I'm different to others, I don't want someone just to sit there and stroke my ego and tell me that everything's going to be okay. And I'm okay the way I am. Because I think that over a prolonged period of time can definitely lead to entitlement. I think it can lead to softness and weakness, and I don't think it's the right thing in the long term.